I never thought my life would spiral into chaos over something as trivial as a car. But that's exactly how it all started, when I first noticed something was off with my wife, Sarah. Our marriage had always seemed solid, you know. We had a decent life together in our suburban home, complete with a well-kept lawn, a golden retriever named Max, and a shiny blue BMW that I bought her on her last birthday. It was a symbol of my love and commitment. What I didn't realize was that it was also a vehicle for betrayal. It started with little things. Sarah began working late more often, claiming she had to cover for a colleague who was out sick. At first, I bought into it, thinking, hey, we all have to deal with work stress. But then the late nights turned into weekends filled with meetings. I noticed she would come home changed, her hair meticulously styled, a hint of perfume that I didn't recognize. I tried to brush it off. I wanted to believe the best of her, but the real kicker came one evening when I came home earlier than usual. I was excited to surprise her with a dinner date. I walked into our house, and as I passed the living room, I overheard snippets of her conversation on the phone. It was clearly a private call, and I strained to catch what she was saying. I should have walked away, I should have respected her privacy. But curiosity got the better of me. I could hear her giggling, a sound that used to warm my heart now sent chills down my spine. I pressed my ear closer to the door. "You know I love it when you drive me around, Jason," she said. Who the hell was Jason? My heart raced. I backed away from the door and rushed to the kitchen where I grabbed my phone to pull up her social media. That's when it hit me. I had forgotten about the chauffeur we hired a few months ago. I thought it was just to make things easier for her since my work kept me busy. Apparently, I had made it easier for her to cheat. After hours of searching through her messages, I found the truth. Text after text exchanged with Jason, all laced with affection and promises. It was damning evidence, and the pain hit like a freight train. I felt sick, angry, enraged at the betrayal and the cruel irony of our situation. I had trusted her with my everything, and she was out there betraying me with my own employee. I confronted Sarah that same night. I didn't want to wait. I stormed into the living room, my heart pounding. "We need to talk," I said, barely managing to keep my voice steady. She looked up, surprise etched on her face, and for a moment I thought I saw guilt flicker in her eyes. But it was quickly replaced by that familiar bitchy attitude I had grown to loathe. "What's the matter now, Eric? Can't I have a little space?" She shot back. I laid it all out, every text, every detail I had uncovered. She went pale, and for a second it seemed like she might confess, but instead she turned defensive. "You're being ridiculous. Jason is just a friend. I can't believe you're spying on me." It was infuriating. I felt my emotions swing wildly from anger to heartbreak. How could she twist the reality so effortlessly? I screamed, "A friend, really? Is that why? You're giggling on the phone and talking about how you love him driving you around." Sarah's excuses flowed like water, each more absurd than the last. She claimed it was harmless flirting, something to make her feel young and desired. She called me controlling and accused me of not being supportive enough of her career. I was left speechless, trying to reconcile the woman I loved with this new, cruel version of her. That night, I barely slept. I tossed and turned, my mind running in circles. I was hurt, angry, and utterly betrayed. I didn't know what the future held, but I realized I had to do something about this. I couldn't just let it slide. I needed to regain control of my life, and that's when the idea began to form in my head, a plan that would ensure she never experienced the comfort she took for granted again. I resolved to take action. As the sun rose the next morning, I felt a strange mix of anger and determination coursing through me. I knew I couldn't just sit back and let Sarah continue her affair with Jason. No, that wasn't going to happen. I spent the day stewing in my thoughts, weighing my options. I could confront her again, demand she end things, but deep down I knew that wouldn't change anything. The trust was shattered, and I couldn't see a way to piece it back together. Instead, I focused on my plan, my revenge. I knew I had to hit her where it would hurt the most, her comfort and her sense of security. The first step was to get rid of the BMW. I didn't want her relying on the car, especially since that's where Jason would pick her up. Selling it would serve two purposes. It would cut her off from her affair and send a message that I was done being the oblivious husband. I contacted a local dealership that I had been to before. The The salesman, a friendly guy named Mike, was more than happy to help me with the sale. I explained that I was looking to get rid of my car and that I wanted to make a deal quickly. The way he looked at me, like he could sense something was off, made me even more resolute. I just wanted this part of my life gone. By the end of the day, I had signed the papers and handed over the keys. I felt a strange sense of satisfaction wash over me. I had made the first move in my plan for revenge. Sarah wouldn't know what hit her. The next morning, I waited for her to wake up. I had decided to confront her again, but this time it was going to be different. I wanted to see her reaction when she realized the BMW was gone. As she stumbled into the kitchen, still yawning, I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Good morning, Sarah. How did you sleep?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Fine, I guess. Why?" she replied, looking at me with suspicion. "Just wanted to let you know that I sold the BMW," I said, watching her face closely for any signs of shock or anger. "What? You sold my car?" Her voice hit a pitch that made Max perk up his ears. "What the hell, Eric? That was mine." "Was it really, or was it just a means for you to meet up with your boyfriend?" I challenged, finally letting my anger surface. "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped back, her eyes narrowing. "You're being so dramatic. You can't just sell my things without asking me." I could see the wheels turning in her mind, trying to formulate some excuse or justification. But there was no way out this time. I was done playing games. "Oh, I can, and I did. Now you'll have to walk everywhere," I said, feeling a surge of power. "You'll have to experience what it's like to be without the luxury you took for granted." The tension in the air was palpable. Sarah's face turned a shade of crimson, her anger boiling over. "You think this is funny?" she shot back. "You're going to regret this decision." "No, sweetheart, I think it's necessary. You've brought this on yourself," I replied, trying to remain steady. Inside, my heart raced. I was on a roller coaster of emotions, guilt, rage, and that nagging feeling of sadness. But I had to stick to my plan. As the days passed, I watched as Sarah struggled to adapt to her new reality. She had to rely on her own 2 feet to get to work, to run errands, to do everything that had been so effortless before. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction every time I saw her in the driveway, huffing as she walked away in her high heels, clearly irritated. The turning point came about a week later when I received a call from my friend Mike, who had a habit of keeping tabs on my life. "Hey man, I saw Sarah walking to work this morning. Looks like she's having a rough time without her car," he said, chuckling. I couldn't help but laugh along with him. As I hung up the phone, I realized that the emotional toll this was taking on me was more profound than I anticipated. The truth was, I still loved Sarah. I missed the woman I fell in love with, the one who made me laugh, who promised me a future. The realization hit hard. Despite everything, the memories haunted me. But I kept my resolve. I had a plan and I was going to see it through. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and taking back the power she had stripped away. I needed to find a way to make her understand the consequences of her actions, to show her how her betrayal had shattered our marriage. And so, with every passing day, I tightened the screws of my plan. I began to do things differently. I started spending more time with friends, going out more, and even considering the possibility of moving on, if that's what it came to. I had to remind myself that while I was executing my plan for revenge, there was a chance that this could lead to something more permanent. I had to prepare for that outcome and face it head on. As the weeks rolled on, Sarah's discomfort without the BMW became more apparent. It was almost comical to watch her struggle to maintain her usual poised demeanor while lugging grocery bags or running late for work. I could see her frustration bubbling under the surface, but she was too prideful to openly admit it. Instead, she'd blow up at me over the smallest things and make passive-aggressive remarks. One evening, she came home late, her hair disheveled and her face flushed. I could tell she had been out with friends who, I suspected, were trying to get her to see the error of her ways. I sat on the couch pretending to be engrossed in a movie, but every now and then I'd steal a glance at her. "Had a good night?" I asked casually when she finally plopped down next to me, reeking of cheap perfume. "Yeah, it was fine," she replied curtly, avoiding eye contact. "Not that it's any of your business." "It is my business when you're out gallivanting while I'm stuck here," I shot back. I could feel the tension thickening in the air. "You're unbelievable," she snapped. "You think this is easy for me? Walking everywhere. You have no idea how humiliating it is." "Humiliating? You should have thought of that before you decided to sleep with Jason," I replied, my voice rising. I was no longer just the calm husband, I was the man who had been wronged. Her eyes widened with shock, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of remorse, but it was quickly replaced by her trademark defiance. "Oh, come on, Eric. That's old news. I thought you were over it." "You're just using this to punish me," she fired back, her words laced with venom. "Maybe I am," acknowledged, my tone steady. "Maybe you need to feel the consequences of your actions." Her expression hardened, and we both sat there in silence for a moment, the air thick with unresolved tension. I was sure she was formulating another excuse or a way to flip the situation back onto me. But this time I wouldn't let her. As she stormed off to our bedroom, I felt a mix of satisfaction and guilt. This wasn't the woman I had married, the one who used to laugh and share her dreams with me. Instead, I was faced with a version of her that was bitter and defensive, a woman who refused to acknowledge the reality of what she had done. It was then I decided to up the stakes. If I really wanted to drive my point home, I needed to take action that would rattle her to her core. I contacted some friends who were more than willing to help me with my plan. My buddy Jake had a friend in the transportation industry, and I arranged for a rideshare service to be set up at her work without her knowledge. It was a little luxury that would serve as a reminder of the life she once had, even as I pulled it away from her. The next day, as I suspected, Sarah was running late again. I watched from the window as she rushed out the front door, her heels clicking on the pavement. I could see the frustration etched on her face as she checked her phone, clearly expecting to have to walk to the bus stop. But then, to my surprise, she paused. Her eyes lit up as she saw a sleek black car pull up right in front of our house. I couldn't help but crack a smile as I saw her hesitate, then approach it cautiously. I could only imagine the thoughts racing in her mind. Was this Jason? Was he finally stepping up to be her knight in shining armor? As she got into the car, I felt a twinge of something, jealousy perhaps, or was it simply watching my wife regain some semblance of comfort? But then I remembered the reason behind this. She needed to understand that her choices had consequences, and this was part of the lesson. The day wore on, and I awaited her return. When she walked through the door that evening, her expression was a mix of confusion and anger. "Who sent the car?" she demanded, her tone sharp. "I did," I admitted, feigning innocence. "I thought you could use a little extra help getting to work." "Help? Or are you just trying to make this worse? Because that's all you seem to care about," she retorted, her voice rising again. "Sarah, I want you to understand the reality of what you've done. You think you can flit around with Jason while I sit here and take it? No. You need to learn that your actions have consequences." I stood my ground, not backing down from the confrontation. She looked at me, and for a moment I thought I might see her break. But then her defenses went back up. "You're being childish, Eric. This isn't going to change anything between us." And in that moment, I realized she might be right. I was caught in a cycle of revenge, but what was my end game? I needed to figure out what I truly wanted. Was it revenge, or did I want to salvage what was left of our marriage? That night I lay in bed, the darkness enveloping me. My mind raced with thoughts of Sarah, her laughter, the way we used to talk for hours about our dreams for the future. I missed that connection. Was it too late to salvage it? I couldn't help but wonder if there was a way to turn this pain into something productive. As I drifted off to sleep, I made a decision. I would move forward with my plan, but it would be different this time. Instead of merely punishing her, I would also seek to initiate a conversation about our marriage. It was time to lay everything on the table. Maybe then we could find a way to work through the issues together. As the days turned into weeks, I tried to balance my plan of revenge with the realization that I still loved Sarah, despite her betrayal. I kept the rideshare service running, and to her annoyance, she began relying on it as her new mode of transportation to and from work. I sensed that the novelty of the situation was starting to wear off on her. The thrill of having someone else drive her around was fading, and she was beginning to feel the consequences of her actions more acutely. One evening, while I was cooking dinner, I heard her come home. I glanced up to see her walk in, looking more exhausted than usual. The spark that had once been in her eyes was dim, and I recognized that the reality of her situation was starting to sink in. It was no longer just the inconvenience of walking everywhere. It was the emotional toll of our strained relationship. "Dinner's almost ready," I called out, trying to keep things light, even though my heart felt heavy. "Great," she replied flatly, plopping down at the kitchen table. It was rare for us to eat dinner together anymore. Most of the time, she was too busy with work or out with friends, and I often opted to eat alone in front of the TV. But tonight, I had a plan to address the elephant in the room. After we sat down, I took a deep breath and decided to break the silence. "Sarah, can we talk?" Her demeanor shifted and I could see her walls go up. "About what?" "More about how I shouldn't have sold my car," she snapped. Defensively. "No, not about that," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want to talk about us, about what happened between us." She looked at me incredulously, as if I had suggested we move to Mars. "What is there to say, Eric? You've made your point. You want to punish me for what I did." "It's not just punishment, Sarah. I want to understand why this happened. I don't want to keep living like this, and I don't think you do either." My voice softened. "Can we at least try to talk honestly about what's going on?" She hesitated, and for a moment I thought she might actually open up. But then she crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair, her expression hardening again. "What's the point? You're just going to throw it back in my face." "Maybe I will, but we have to address the issues if we want to move forward," I urged. "I don't want to keep fighting. I want to know why you turned to Jason. I want to understand what you were missing in our marriage." "I was missing attention, Eric. You were always so wrapped up in your job that I felt like I was living with a ghost. I wanted to feel desired again, and Jason made me feel that way," she said, her voice trembling, revealing layers of anger and hurt beneath her facade. "Desired? You think Jason's the answer? What about us? What we had?" I challenged, trying to remain calm. "It's not too late to fix this." She shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "You don't get it. I felt so lonely. I tried to talk to you, but it felt pointless. And then I met someone who actually listened, who made me feel alive again. I thought it was just a fling, but it turned into something else. I didn't mean to hurt you." I felt a pang of sadness as her words sank in. I had been so focused on her betrayal that I hadn't fully grasped her feelings of isolation. "Sarah, I wish you had come to me instead of turning to someone else. I would have tried to be better." "I didn't realize you felt that way," I said, my voice softening. Her defenses began to crumble as she wiped her tears away. "I know, and maybe I should have said something sooner, but I thought you wouldn't care. I felt so lost." After a long pause, I reached across the table and took her hand. "Let's work through this together. We can go to therapy, try to reconnect. I still love you, and despite everything, I want to see if we can rebuild what we lost." She looked up at me, her eyes searching mine for sincerity. "You mean that?" "I do, but it's going to take time. I want to know what you need from me to feel secure again in our marriage. And I need you to commit to working on what you did, to understand how it affected us both." She nodded slowly. "I can do that. I just don't want to feel like I'm under constant punishment for a mistake I made. I want to move forward." We sat there, hands intertwined, both of us grappling with the weight of what had happened. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. I could see that Sarah was willing to try, and for the first time in weeks I felt a glimmer of hope. As the days passed, we began to communicate more openly. We set up an appointment with a therapist and committed to making changes in our lives. I started focusing more on my work-life balance, intentionally carving out time for us. I still kept the rideshare going, but I made sure to surprise her with a lunch date once a week to remind her how much she meant to me. I was beginning to feel lighter, and I could sense the walls between us slowly crumbling. But it was also clear that we had a long way to go. I still had moments of uncertainty. Could I truly trust her again? Would she falter and seek comfort in Jason once more? I had to remind myself that rebuilding trust takes time, and both of us needed to do the work. As difficult as it was, I knew that I needed to let go of my desire for revenge, shifting my focus instead to healing and rebuilding our relationship. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with bumps and obstacles. I had to stay committed, not just for her but for us. I had learned the hard way that love isn't just a feeling, it's an action, one that requires hard work and dedication. And while I had gotten my revenge in one sense by selling the BMW, I realized that the true path to healing lay not in revenge but in forgiveness. It's been a few months since Sarah and I decided to confront our issues head-on. The journey hasn't been easy, but it's been transformative in ways I never expected. We've been going to therapy regularly, working through our feelings, and trying to understand what led us to this point. It was a humbling experience for both of us, and I realized that there was still so much I didn't know about her and about myself. In therapy, we delved into the roots of our discontent. I learned how my dedication to my job had created a rift between us, leaving her to navigate life alone. I was so focused on providing for us that I neglected the emotional aspects of our relationship. It was a wake-up call, and as painful as it was to hear, I knew that acknowledging my faults was the first step toward rebuilding our connection. Sarah, on the other hand, had to face her decisions and the consequences that came with them. She was deeply remorseful for her affair with Jason and was willing to take responsibility for the hurt she caused. It was a process of rebuilding trust, and I could see the effort she was putting into our relationship. There were moments when I questioned if we were doing the right thing, if we could ever truly heal from this. But little by little, I noticed changes in both of us. One evening, as we sat in our living room, I decided to address the elephant in the room. "I know this hasn't been easy for you. How are you feeling about everything?" I asked, genuinely wanting to know. She paused for a moment, her gaze fixed on the floor. "It's hard, Eric. I've been working so hard to make up for my mistakes, but sometimes I still feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I'm scared I'll mess up again." "You won't," I reassured her. "We're in this together. I'm still figuring things out too. It's okay to feel uneasy. I honestly didn't know how much I needed this. It's forcing me to confront parts of myself I neglected. I guess I thought my happiness would come from external sources, friends, flings, when all along I should have been looking inward and communicating with you." She sighed, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. "I want to be better for both of us." Her vulnerability opened a floodgate of emotions within me, and I felt a wave of empathy wash over me. "And I want to support you in that," I said. "But we need to keep being honest with each other. No more secrets, no matter how difficult the truth may be." We spent that evening talking, sharing our fears and hopes for the future. It felt good to reconnect on a deeper level. I realized that our marriage needed more than just a bandage over the wounds. It needed a complete overhaul. We set goals together, like scheduling regular date nights and being more intentional with our time. We began to prioritize our relationship again, and slowly but surely, the laughter and connection began to return. While we were making strides in our marriage, I still had moments of doubt creeping in, especially concerning Jason. I had made it clear to Sarah that he was not to be part of her life anymore, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she might falter. One day, I caught myself scrolling through social media, and I saw a picture of Jason with some friends at a local bar. My heart sank, and I felt that familiar pang of jealousy. I wrestled with my emotions, replaying the image over and over in my mind. I couldn't let this consume me. I decided to talk to Sarah about it, even though I was nervous about how she would react. During our next therapy session, I brought it up. "I saw a picture of Jason online," I admitted, my voice shaky. "It just brought back all those feelings of betrayal, and I felt a wave of insecurity." She looked taken aback, her expression shifting into concern. "How did it make you feel?" "Jealous and insecure," I confessed. "I don't want to feel that way, but I can't help it. I'm trying to trust you again, but sometimes I just don't know if I can." "I get it," she said softly. "I'm sorry I put you in that position. I want to reassure you that I'm committed to us, and I have no intention of seeing him again. That part of my life is over. You're the one I want to rebuild with." Hearing her words brought a sense of relief, but I knew that trust would take time to restore fully. We continued to work through our feelings, and with each session, I felt as though we were laying down the bricks to a stronger foundation. But the turning point came when we finally decided to take a weekend trip together, a chance to reconnect away from the routines and stresses of everyday life. I planned a getaway to a cozy cabin in the woods, far enough from the noise of the city, but close enough to nature that we could unwind. It was a leap of faith, and I hoped it would help us rekindle the romance that had been overshadowed by turmoil. The drive felt refreshing, with the trees lining the road and the sun shining through the clouds. When we arrived at the cabin, it felt like we were stepping into a new chapter of our lives. We spent the weekend hiking, laughing, and reminiscing about the good times. I caught glimpses of the woman I fell in love with, her laughter, her smile, the way her eyes lit up when she was happy. One night as we sat by the fire, I took her hand in mine. "I want you to know that I'm proud of how far we've come," I said, looking into her eyes. "I see the effort you're putting into this, and it gives me hope for our future." She smiled softly, her eyes glistening in the firelight. "Thank you, Eric. I'm grateful you're willing to work through this with me. I know I've hurt you, but I want to prove that I can be the partner you need." We talked late into the night, sharing our dreams, our fears, and what our future could look like. It felt liberating to finally articulate our emotions without fear of judgment. As the fire crackled before us, I realized that we were starting to rebuild, brick by brick, and that the bond we had was worth fighting for. While I knew that the road ahead would still have its challenges, I was more determined than ever to navigate it together. We had both learned hard lessons, and maybe, just maybe, we could emerge stronger than before. My focus shifted from revenge to rebuilding, and for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about our future. As the days turned into weeks, the transformation in our relationship was palpable. What started as a painful journey of confrontation and betrayal had morphed into a renewed commitment to one another. I could feel the weight of the past lifting as Sarah and I worked together to rebuild our foundation, brick by brick. After our weekend getaway, we continued to make time for each other. We scheduled regular date nights, experimented with new activities, and started to communicate openly about our feelings. Each small gesture, whether it was cooking dinner together or simply sharing a laugh, brought us closer, reminding me of the love we once shared. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I glanced over at her. She was laughing at something on screen, and for a moment, I felt like I was falling in love all over again. It was a stark contrast to the darkness that had clouded our lives just a few months prior. I reached for her hand, intertwining my fingers with hers. "Do you remember when we first started dating?" I asked, a smile creeping onto my face. "We used to binge-watch movies like this and make popcorn together." Her eyes sparkled. "How could I forget? You always burned the popcorn and I'd tease you about it." I chuckled, remembering those early days. "I guess some things never change." Sarah's laughter faded into a soft smile as she turned serious. "I know I've put you through hell and I can't change the past, but I want you to know that I'm committed to making it right. You're my priority now." Her sincerity struck a chord deep within me. It was a promise, a vow to move forward together. "And I'm committed to you, Sarah. We may have a long way to go, but I believe we can make it through this." That evening marked a turning point for me. I realized that I had spent so much time fixated on the betrayal that I had overlooked the possibility of healing. I was learning to forgive, not just her, but also myself, for holding onto anger and resentment. As the months passed, we continued to work on ourselves individually and as a couple. We sought out therapy together, and I also made an effort to engage in self-reflection. I started journaling my thoughts and feelings, which allowed me to process everything more effectively. It became a tool for growth, helping me articulate my emotions and understand my reactions. In the midst of all this, I discovered something about myself. I had always been the kind of husband who focused on providing, on being the steady rock for Sarah. But I realized I had neglected my own emotional needs, too. It was okay to express my feelings and seek support when I needed it. On top of that, I learned to let go of the resentment I had felt towards Jason. At first, I had envisioned him as the enemy, the one who tried to steal my wife away from me. But I came to understand that he was merely a catalyst for change. His presence had highlighted the cracks in our marriage, prompting us to confront what we had taken for granted. One day, after a particularly insightful therapy session, I turned to Sarah. I think I'm finally ready to let go of what happened with Jason. I don't want to hold on to that anger anymore. She looked at me, her eyes wide with surprise. Really? You mean that? Yeah, I said, nodding. I think it's time we both let the past be the past. It doesn't define us anymore. Sarah's expression softened and she leaned in closer. That means a lot to me, Eric. I've been feeling the weight of my mistakes, too. I'm so grateful we're on this journey together. As we continued on our path of healing, I realized just how much I had grown. I was learning to embrace vulnerability, to communicate openly, and to prioritize our connection. I was no longer just the husband scorned. I was a partner who was actively involved in the healing process. A few months later, we attended a wedding of a close friend together. As we danced under the twinkling lights, I couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of joy. The music swirled around us, and for the first time in a long while I felt truly at peace. Who would have thought we'd be here after everything we went through? I whispered in her ear, pulling her closer. She smiled, eyes sparkling with happiness. It's incredible, isn't it? I never thought we could come back from this, but here we are. I'm so glad we fought for it. I kissed her gently, feeling a sense of gratitude wash over me. I had learned that love is not just a feeling, it's a commitment to grow together, to support one another, even through the darkest times. The road had been rocky, but it had also brought us to a place of understanding and renewal. As we left the wedding hand in hand, I felt hopeful for our future. The journey wasn't over, but we were on the right path, ready to face whatever life threw our way. I had learned that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the greatest victories, and that love, though tested, can emerge stronger than ever. In the end, we were not just a couple, we were partners in healing, navigating the complexities of marriage together. We had weathered the storm, and as I looked at Sarah, I knew that we could continue to build a life filled with trust, laughter, and love, and that was more rewarding than any revenge could ever be.